The blood on my hands was still warm when I realized I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. 3 ms. 13 bodies lay motionless in that warehouse, and somewhere in the darkness, I could hear Mia crying. My SEAL training had kicked in automatically, but this wasn't Afghanistan or Iraq. This was supposed to be our quiet little hometown. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your location. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 6 months ago, my biggest worry was whether I'd have enough saved up to buy Mia the engagement ring she deserved. We'd been together since junior year of high school, and now, 3 years after I'd finished my tours with the Navy SEALs, we were finally building the life we'd always dreamed about. I'm Jake Morrison, 25 years old, and I thought I'd left all the violence behind me when I hung up my uniform. After 8 years of classified operations across 3 continents, I was ready to be nobody special. Just another guy working construction, coming home to the woman who'd waited for me through deployment after deployment. Mia Chun was everything the military had taught me I didn't deserve. Beautiful, yes, but that wasn't what got me. It was how she'd write me letters every single day when I was overseas, how she'd learned to change her own oil because she didn't want to burden anyone while I was gone, how she still got excited when I'd surprise her with gas station flowers. We lived in a small apartment on the edge of Riverside, California, about 20 minutes from the high school where she taught 4th grade. Every morning, I'd watch her pack her little lunch bag, kiss me goodbye, and drive off in that beat-up Honda Civic she refused to let me replace. She said it had character. I said it had about 3 more months before the transmission gave out completely. Our routine was simple. I'd head to the construction site. She'd head to Lincoln Elementary, and we'd meet back home around 6 to cook dinner together and argue over what to watch on Netflix. Weekends were for hiking, visiting her parents in Chinatown, or just lying around reading books while she graded papers. The closest thing we had to drama was when her mother would ask why we weren't married yet, or when my old team buddies would call drunk at 2 in the morning, wanting to relive old war stories I was trying to forget. I loved that boring life. After years of adrenaline and life-or-death decisions, boring was exactly what I needed. Mia would tease me about how I still did military corners on our bed sheets, or how I'd automatically scan every room we entered for exits. Old habits, I'd tell her. She'd just smile and say she liked dating a man who could protect her, even if the most dangerous thing in our neighborhood was Mrs. Peterson's aggressive chihuahua. That Tuesday started like every other Tuesday. I made coffee, she made toast, and we sat at our little kitchen table planning our weekend camping trip. She was excited about trying a new trail she'd found online. I was excited about 3 days of no cell service and just her. Promise me something, she said as she gathered her teaching materials. When we get back from camping, we start seriously looking at houses. I want a garden, Jake. I want to plant things and watch them grow. I kissed her forehead, breathing in that vanilla perfume she always wore. Deal. But I get to pick the security system. She rolled her eyes. Always thinking like a soldier. Former soldier, I corrected her. Now I think like a man who wants to keep his woman safe. That was the last normal conversation we ever had. At 3:47 that afternoon, my phone rang. Mia's number. But when I answered, it wasn't her voice I heard. It was something that made my blood turn to ice and brought back every violent instinct I'd spent 3 years trying to bury. Your girl is very pretty, soldier boy. The voice on Mia's phone was thick with an accent I recognized from my time working with DEA task forces in Central America. Salvadoran. Gang-affiliated. She smelled nice too. My hand gripped the phone so hard I heard the case crack. Around me, the construction site noise faded to white static. Every instinct I'd developed during 8 years of special operations screamed that this was real, immediate, and deadly serious. Who is this? Where's Mia? Laughter. Cold, calculated laughter that told me these weren't amateurs. She teaching little kids, no? Very sweet. Very fragile. You want to see her again? You listen carefully. The line went dead. I was already running toward my truck before my conscious mind caught up with my body. Muscle memory took over as I speed dialed the school's main office, while simultaneously calling 911. The secretary at Lincoln Elementary confirmed what my gut already knew. Mia had left at her normal time, 3:30 p.m., walking to the staff parking lot like she did every day. Her Honda was still there, keys on the ground beside the driver's door. Purse missing. No witnesses. The first patrol officer to arrive was maybe 22 years old, baby-faced, and clearly more used to traffic stops than kidnappings. Officer Martinez, according to his name tag. He took notes on a small pad while I explained the situation, but I could see in his eyes that he wasn't grasping the severity. Sir, in most missing person cases, the individual returns within 24 hours. Could she have gone somewhere with a friend? Maybe her phone died. I wanted to grab him by his uniform shirt and explain that the man who called me knew Mia was a teacher, knew she smelled nice, knew I was former military. This wasn't a spontaneous crime. This was targeted, planned, and professional. Instead, I kept my voice level. Officer, the person who called me from her phone had a Central American accent and called me Soldier Boy. This isn't a case of a woman going shopping and forgetting to call home. Martinez looked skeptical. How can you be sure about the accent? Sometimes stress makes us. Because I've interrogated members of MS-13, Barrio 18, and half a dozen other Central American gangs across 3 deployments. I know what I heard. That got his attention. He called for a detective. Detective Sarah Williams arrived 40 minutes later, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who'd clearly seen enough real crime to take me seriously. She listened without interrupting as I walked her through everything. The phone call, the timing, Mia's routine, the abandoned car. You mentioned MS-13, she said, taking actual notes in a real notebook. Why them specifically? The accent, the terminology, the fact that they called me Soldier Boy. MS-13 has a history of targeting military families, especially in retaliation for operations in El Salvador and Honduras. My unit conducted several joint operations with Salvadoran Special Forces between 2019 and 2021. Williams nodded grimly. We've had increased MS-13 activity in the area over the past 6 months. 3 businesses hit for protection money. 2 rival gang members found dead in the desert. If they've escalated to kidnapping. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. We both knew what MS-13 was capable of. I need to call my old team, I said. Mr. Morrison, I understand you want to help, but this is a police matter now. We have protocols, FBI liaisons, resources you don't have access to. I looked at her steadily. Detective, with all due respect, how many MS-13 kidnapping cases has Riverside PD handled successfully? Her silence was answer enough. My team and I dismantled 3 MS-13 cells operating out of San Salvador. We know their tactics, their communication methods, their safe house preferences. We know how they think. And if you're wrong, if you start a war with a gang that might not even have her, then Mia dies anyway, but slower. Williams closed her notebook and looked at me with the expression of someone who'd learned the hard way that sometimes the system isn't enough. I can't officially authorize anything, she said carefully. But if concerned citizens happen to share information that helps us locate a missing person, well, anonymous tips are always welcome. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A single photo, Mia, bound and blindfolded, sitting in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Her teaching clothes were dirty but intact. She was alive. Below the photo, a message, 24 hours, Soldier Boy. We'll be in touch. I showed Williams the screen. Her face went pale. Now it's definitely MS-13, she whispered. Detective Williams was already making calls before I'd finished forwarding her the photo. I watched her pace the parking lot of Lincoln Elementary, her voice getting more urgent with each conversation. FBI, Gang Task Force, Homeland Security. The alphabet soup of agencies that should have made me feel better, but only reminded me how bureaucratic everything was about to become. While she worked the official channels, I made my own call. Tommy Rodriguez here. Tommy, it's Jake Morrison. Silence. Then, Jesus Christ, Jake. Haven't heard from you since Garcia's funeral. What's wrong? You only call when something's wrong. Tommy had been our intelligence specialist, the guy who could find a needle in a haystack if that needle had ever sent an email or made a phone call. After leaving the teams, he'd gone private sector, doing security consulting for people who paid better than Uncle Sam. MS-13 has Mia. Fuck. No hesitation, no questions about whether I was sure. Tommy knew me well enough to know I wouldn't make that call unless I was certain. Location? Unknown. They sent a proof of life photo 30 minutes ago. Warehouse, industrial area, could be anywhere in Southern California. I'll start pulling traffic cameras, cross-reference recent MS-13 safe house locations. What's the demand? No demand yet. They're playing psychological warfare. Said they'd be in touch. Jake, Tommy's voice got serious. MS-13 doesn't do simple ransom kidnappings. They're making a point about something. You piss anyone off lately? Old operations coming back to bite us. That's when it hit me. 3 years ago, Operation Green Sweep. Joint task force between Navy SEALs and Salvadoran Special Forces. We'd taken down a major MS-13 trafficking pipeline that had been smuggling drugs and weapons through Honduras into Texas. The operation had been classified, but in the world of Central American organized crime, secrets didn't stay secret long. Tommy, pull the files on Green Sweep. Cross-reference any MS-13 leadership we captured or killed with current active cells in California. Already on it. Give me 2 hours. Detective Williams walked back over, her expression grim. FBI is mobilizing a task force, but it'll take them 6 to 8 hours to get fully operational. Homeland Security is reviewing any recent MS-13 intelligence, but they're telling me this might be retaliation for something. It is. I explained Operation Green Sweep, watching her face grow paler with each detail. So this isn't random. They specifically targeted your girlfriend because of military operations you conducted 3 years ago. That's exactly what this is. MS-13 has a long memory and a longer reach than most people realize. They've been known to track down former military personnel and their families for years after operations end. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number, but this time it was just words. Miguel Santos sends his regards. The name hit me like a physical blow. Miguel Santos had been the number 2 in the trafficking organization we'd dismantled. His brother Carlos had been killed in the final raid when he'd chosen to fight rather than surrender. Miguel had escaped, disappeared into the network of MS-13 cells scattered across Central and North America. Williams, I need you to run a name through your gang database. Miguel Santos, also known as El Cuchillo. Last known to be operating out of San Salvador, but clearly he's moved operations. She was already typing into her laptop. Holy shit, Jake. This guy's got a file thicker than a phone book. Multiple homicides, trafficking, extortion, torture, and look at this. She turned the screen toward me. 6 months ago, Riverside PD received intelligence that a high-level MS-13 leader had moved into the area and was consolidating smaller gangs under his control. The timeline matched perfectly. Miguel had spent 3 years planning this, building his power base, waiting for the right moment to strike back at the team that had destroyed his organization and killed his brother. There's more, Williams continued, scrolling through the file. 3 other military families have been targeted in the past year. 1 in Texas, 1 in Arizona, 1 in Nevada. All former special operations personnel who were involved in Central American anti-gang operations. What happened to them? Williams' silence told me everything I needed to know. My phone rang. The same unknown number as before. This time, when I answered, I heard Mia's voice, weak but clearly her. Jake? Jake, I'm okay. I'm scared, but I'm okay. They said they want to. The line cut to Miguel's voice. Older now, harder, but but I recognized the cold calculation I'd heard during our one face-to-face encounter 3 years ago in a Salvadoran prison cell. Hello, soldier boy. Now you know who I am. Now you know this is personal. You have 18 hours to come to me alone, or your pretty teacher learns why they call me El Cuchillo. The line went dead, but not before I heard something that made my blood run cold. Mia screaming in the background. Mia's scream echoed in my head long after the phone went silent. I'd heard that exact sound too many times during interrogations overseas. Pure terror mixed with physical pain. Miguel wasn't just threatening me. He was already hurting her. Detective Williams saw the look on my face and immediately stepped closer. Jake, whatever you're thinking, don't. We can't let emotions drive this operation. Emotions? I turned to face her, and she actually took a step back. That woman is everything to me. She waited 3 years for me to come home from tours that I couldn't even tell her about. She held my hand through nightmares, helped me adjust to civilian life, never once complained about the baggage I brought back from war zones. And now she's paying the price for missions she never even knew I went on. I understand, but no, you don't understand. You can't understand. Because you've never had to live with the fact that loving you might get someone killed. Williams pulled out her phone and started making calls. Within minutes, she had FBI Special Agent David Chun on the line, no relation to Mia, despite the name. Chun was running the Joint Task Force, now mobilizing out of the Los Angeles field office. Mr. Morrison, I've been briefed on Operation Green Sweep. Chun's voice crackled through Williams' speakerphone. We're treating this as a domestic terrorism incident with international connections. Full federal response is being coordinated. How long? I asked. We'll have assets in position within 4 hours. Surveillance teams, negotiation specialists, tactical units. We're also coordinating with IC and DEA to track any known MS-13 safe houses in the region. Agent Chun, with respect, I don't have 4 hours. Miguel Santos just told me I have 18 hours to come alone, or he kills her. That timer is already down to 17 hours and 43 minutes. Sir, under no circumstances can you attempt to negotiate with or confront these individuals alone. MS-13 operates on a completely different level of violence than most domestic criminal organizations. They will kill you both without hesitation. I knew he was right about their capacity for violence. I'd seen MS-13 crime scenes in El Salvador that haunted me more than anything I'd witnessed in Afghanistan. But I also knew something Chin didn't. Miguel Santos was smart, methodical, and patient. This wasn't about money or territory. This was personal revenge, which meant he wanted me alive long enough to suffer. Agent Chun, what's your success rate on MS-13 kidnapping cases? Silence on the line. Agent Chun, Mr. Morrison, every case is different. We have resources and protocols that, what's your success rate? More silence. Finally, in the past 3 years, federal agencies have responded to 7 confirmed MS-13 kidnapping cases involving civilians. 2 victims were recovered alive. 28%. Mia had a 28% chance of survival if I let the FBI handle this through official channels. Detective Williams was already pulling up case files on her laptop. Jake, look at this. The Nevada case, the military family I mentioned earlier. Former Green Beret named Marcus Webb. His wife was taken 6 months ago under similar circumstances. She turned the screen toward me, and I saw crime scene photos that made my stomach clench. Webb had tried to go through official channels. FBI had set up surveillance, negotiation teams, the full federal response. By the time they located the safe house, Webb's wife had been dead for 3 days. They'd found Webb himself tortured and killed in a separate location. Miguel Santos was suspected but never charged, Williams continued. Witnesses disappeared, evidence got contaminated, jurisdiction issues between agencies slowed everything down. My phone buzzed with another text. This time it was a video file, 30 seconds long. Mia, still bound and blindfolded, but now I could see dried blood on her hands. In the background, A voice speaking Spanish. Miguel giving orders to someone off camera. I played the video for Williams and Chun over the speakerphone. Even through the phone's speaker, you could hear the fear in Mia's breathing. Can your technical team get location data from this video? I asked Chun. We'll analyze it, but MS-13 has gotten sophisticated about digital security. They usually strip metadata and use encrypted channels. It'll take time we might not have. What about surveillance footage from around the school? Traffic cameras? Anything that might show which direction they took her? Already in progress, but it's a manual review process. Hundreds of hours of footage across dozens of cameras. Again, it takes time. Time. Everything came back to time, and we were running out of it. My second phone, my old secure military line that I'd kept active out of habit, started ringing. Tommy Rodriguez. Jake, I've got good news and bad news. Good news. I found 3 potential MS-13 safe houses within 50 miles of Riverside. Bad news. Miguel Santos is a ghost. No digital footprint, no financial records, no communication intercepts. This guy learned operational security from someone who knew what they were doing. What about the safe houses? One's in an industrial district in San Bernardino, one's in a warehouse complex near Moreno Valley, and one's in an abandoned trucking facility outside Hemet. Problem is, hitting the wrong location first gives Miguel time to move her, or worse. Agent Chun had been listening. Mr. Morrison, if you have intelligence on potential locations, we need that information immediately. We can coordinate simultaneous raids on all 3 facilities. And if she's not at any of them? If Miguel has a 4th location you don't know about? Then we expand the search grid and, Agent Chun, stop. Just stop. I closed my eyes and tried to think like the operator I used to be instead of the desperate boyfriend I was now. Miguel Santos didn't spend 3 years planning this operation just to hole up in a known safe house that former associates might be able to identify. He's smarter than that, more patient than that. Williams looked up from her laptop. So what are you saying? I'm saying we're playing his game by his rules, and that's exactly how he planned it. While we're running around checking surveillance footage and analyzing videos, while we're coordinating federal task forces and jurisdiction protocols, Mia is getting further away from any chance of rescue. My phone buzzed again. Another text. 16 hours, soldier boy. Time flies when you're having fun. I made a decision that would either save Mia's life or destroy any chance she had left. I hung up on Agent Chin mid-sentence and started dialing numbers I hadn't used in 3 years. Marcus Torres. Marcus, it's Jake Morrison. I need the team. Now. Jake? Holy shit, man. What's the situation? Marcus had been our demolitions expert, the guy who could turn a paperclip and some household chemicals into enough explosive to level a building. After the teams, he'd gone into private security, the kind of work that paid well and didn't ask too many questions about methods. MS-13 has Mia. It's Miguel Santos from Green Sweep. He's got maybe 15 hours left on his timeline before he kills her. Where are you? Riverside. Lincoln Elementary parking lot. I'm in Vegas. Give me 3 hours to drive down. Don't do anything stupid until I get there. Marcus. Jake, listen to me. You go in alone, you're both dead. Santos isn't just going to let you walk away after some Hollywood prisoner exchange. He wants you to suffer first. 3 hours. Can you hold position for 3 hours? I looked at Detective Williams, who was frantically trying to get Agent Chin back on the phone. The official response was spinning up, but it felt like watching a freight train trying to catch a sports car. 3 hours, I agreed. Next call, David Kim, our former communications specialist. Now he ran a private intelligence firm that did contract work for corporations, lawyers, and occasionally, people like us who needed information the government couldn't or wouldn't provide. Kim Secure Solutions. David, it's Jake. Jake Morrison? Damn. Brother, it's been too long. Please tell me this is a social call. I explained the situation in 30 seconds. David went quiet for a long moment. Miguel Santos. Yeah, I remember that piece of shit. Okay, I've got facial recognition software running on traffic cameras across 3 counties. I've got cell tower triangulation programs that can track phones even when they're trying to stay hidden. Give me 2 hours, and I'll have more intelligence on MS-13 movement in Southern California than the FBI has collected in 6 months. David, they'll have changed phones, switched vehicles. Jake, you're thinking like it's 2019. Technology has gotten scary good in the past few years. These guys might be smart about traditional surveillance, but they can't avoid every digital footprint. Trust me. Third call, the one I'd been dreading. Chief Petty Officer Sam Wilson, our former team leader. Sam had stayed in the Navy, worked his way up to running SEAL training programs at Coronado. He had access to resources and databases that the rest of us could only dream about. Wilson, Chief, it's Morrison. Jake. Sam's voice immediately shifted to the tone he used during mission briefings. What do you need? I gave him the full situation, including the timeline and the federal response that was moving too slowly. Santos is using military-grade operational security. I finished. This isn't some street gang improvising. He's planned this for 3 years, and he's executing it like a military operation. Jake, you know I can't officially authorize anything. I'm not asking for official authorization. Sam was quiet for 30 seconds. I could practically hear him weighing regulations against loyalty, official duty against brotherhood. Miguel Santos was flagged in our database 8 months ago when he entered the country through Tijuana. INS lost track of him, but we maintained passive surveillance through JSOC. I might be able to access some of that intelligence. Chief, Jake, shut up and listen. If Santos is running this like a military op, then he's got contingency plans, backup locations, and exit strategies. The federal response is going to be slow and predictable. He's counting on that. He wants you desperate enough to come alone, but not so desperate that you bring an army with you. So what do you recommend? I recommend you remember that you're not just some grieving boyfriend. You're a Navy SEAL who's run more successful hostage extractions than most people have seen in movies. Stop thinking with your heart and start thinking with your training. Detective Williams walked over, her phone pressed to her ear. Jake, Agent Chun wants to coordinate with any resources you might have. He's willing to work with your contacts if it means getting better intelligence faster. I looked at my watch. 14 hours and 27 minutes left. Chief, can you get me real-time satellite surveillance of those 3 safe house locations Tommy identified? Already pulling it up. Jake, there's something else. Santos didn't come to California alone. We've tracked at least 12 known MS-13 operatives entering the country over the past 6 months, all through different border crossings, all with connections to the organization you guys dismantled. He's got a full team. He's got a fucking army, Jake. This isn't a kidnapping. It's a military operation designed to draw you and possibly the rest of the team into a kill zone. My phone buzzed with a new message. Bring your friends, soldier boy. We're ready for all of you. Santos had been listening somehow. He knew I was rallying the team. Santos knowing about my calls changed everything. Either he had surveillance on me, or he had access to communication intercepts that suggested federal involvement. Both possibilities meant we were walking into a trap that had been 3 years in the making. Marcus arrived first, pulling up in a black Ford F-150 that looked stock but probably had enough modifications to outrun anything law enforcement could field. He stepped out looking exactly like what he was. A man who'd spent the last 3 years in places where being soft meant being dead. Jake. He gripped my shoulder, the kind of contact that said everything without words. We're going to get her back. Marcus, he knows we're coming. He knows I called the team. Good. Let him know. Santos thinks he's fighting the desperate boyfriend who's going to make emotional mistakes. He doesn't realize he's about to face 4 Navy SEALs who've had 3 years to get very good at private sector warfare. David Kim arrived 20 minutes later in a van that looked like a mobile command center. Banks of monitors, satellite uplinks, and enough electronic equipment to run a small military operation. He started setting up without being asked, his fingers flying across keyboards as data streams began populating his screens. Jake, I've got good news. Santos made a mistake. His people have been using encrypted phones, but they're all on the same cellular network, and they've been connecting to the same VPN server. I can't break the encryption, but I can track movement patterns. He pointed to a map on his largest monitor, showing red dots moving in coordinated patterns across Riverside and San Bernardino counties. Look at this. 12 active devices, moving in teams of 3, all converging on this area here. He highlighted a section of industrial buildings near the old Norton Air Force Base. But here's the interesting part. One device has been stationary for 8 hours, right here. The stationary that was in what looked like an abandoned aircraft hangar. Chief Wilson called in just as we were studying the surveillance patterns. Jake, I've got satellite imagery of that hangar location. It's perfect for what Santos is planning. Isolated, multiple entry and exit points, surrounded by open ground that would make any rescue attempt visible from miles away. Is she there? Unknown. But Jake, there's something else. We've identified the 12 operatives Santos brought with him. These aren't just gang members. Half of them are former Salvadoran military, discharged under questionable circumstances. The other half are sicarios with kill counts in the double digits. Marcus looked up from cleaning a pistol I hadn't seen him draw. So we're not just dealing with MS-13. We're dealing with professional soldiers who've gone criminal. Gets better, Wilson continued. 3 of them were trained by U.S. Special Forces during joint operations in El Salvador. They know our tactics, our protocols, our standard operating procedures. David's computers chimed with an incoming data stream. Guys, I'm getting real-time intercepts from the hangar location. Audio surveillance. Encrypted, but I can pick up voice patterns. He played a recording that made my heart rate spike. Mia's voice, weak but alive, speaking Spanish. She was asking for water. A male voice responded harshly, ordering her to stay quiet. She's alive, Jake, Marcus said. And she's fighting. Listen to her tone. Scared but not broken. Santos hasn't crushed her spirit yet. Yet, I repeated. But he's getting close. I can hear it in her voice. Detective Williams had been coordinating with the FBI task force, but she walked over looking frustrated. Jake, Agent Chen wants to know your team's timeline. The federal response is getting pushback from Washington about authorizing a domestic military operation. Tell Agent Chen that we're not asking for authorization, I said. We're offering coordination. His people can handle the perimeter, manage local law enforcement response, and process any survivors we leave behind. Survivors? Marcus answered without looking up from his weapon. Detective, these people tortured and killed Marcus Webb's wife. They've probably done the same to other military families. Jake's girlfriend is alive right now, but that could change at any moment. We're not going in there to arrest anyone. David's surveillance setup chimed again. This time, the audio was Miguel Santos speaking in rapid Spanish to his team. David ran it through translation software. He's giving final position assignments. Looks like they're expecting us tonight. Jake, this is a kill box. The hangar is surrounded by sniper positions. The access roads are probably mined or at least under surveillance, and they've got fallback positions prepared. My phone buzzed with another message from Santos. The hangar at Norton. Midnight. Come alone, or watch your teacher die slowly on live video. 11 hours left. But now we knew where she was. Marcus, David, Chief, Santos wants me alone at midnight. What he's going to get is 4 SEALs at a time of our choosing, using tactics he's never seen before. What's the plan? Marcus asked. I looked at the satellite imagery, the surveillance data, and the tactical assessment. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like the operator I used to be instead of the desperate boyfriend I'd become. We're going to give Miguel Santos exactly what he's been planning for 3 years. And then we're going to show him why that was a very bad idea. Chief Wilson called back 30 minutes later with news that changed everything about our tactical situation. Jake, I just got off a very interesting phone call with Admiral Patricia Hayes at JSOC. Officially, The Navy has no knowledge of any operations involving former SEAL personnel and domestic criminal organizations. And unofficially, Admiral Hayes mentioned that Miguel Santos and his organization have been classified as a transnational terrorist threat under the National Defense Authorization Act. Any action taken against confirmed terrorist operatives on U.S. soil falls under existing military engagement protocols. Marcus looked up from the tactical gear he'd been organizing. Chief, are you telling us what I think you're telling us? I'm telling you that if certain former Navy SEALs happen to engage in defensive operations against confirmed terrorist operatives who were threatening American civilians, and if those operations happen to align with existing national security objectives, well, sometimes paperwork gets filed retroactively. David Kim had been monitoring federal communication channels. Jake, this gets better. Admiral Hayes isn't the only one paying attention. I'm seeing classified traffic between JSOC, FBI, and DEA. Someone very high up the chain of command has been tracking Santos for months, waiting for him to make a move that would justify direct action. So we're not going rogue, I said. We're providing plausible deniability for an operation the government wants to happen but can't officially authorize. Exactly. Jake, Admiral Hayes specifically requested that any intelligence gathered during tonight's activities be forwarded through Chief Wilson to appropriate military channels. She also mentioned that certain specialized equipment might be available if needed. Within an hour, we had access to real-time satellite surveillance, encrypted communication systems, and tactical gear that wasn't supposed to exist in civilian hands. More importantly, we had the psychological advantage of knowing that we weren't just four guys going rogue. We were the tip of the spear for an operation that had official support at the highest levels. David's surveillance setup had grown into a full mission command center. Multiple screens showed the hangar from every angle, tracking Santos people as they moved into position around the perimeter. Jake, look at this pattern. Santos has set up a classic L-shaped ambush. Snipers on the high ground to the north and east, machine gun positions covering the access road from the south, and what looks like an IED or two placed along the most obvious approach routes. Marcus studied the tactical display. He's good. This is textbook asymmetric warfare. Use the terrain to channel us into predetermined kill zones, then overwhelm us with superior firepower from concealed positions. Problem is, I said, Santos learned these tactics from us. He knows how American Special Operations Forces think, how we approach targets, how we prioritize objectives. Chief Wilson's voice came through our secure communication system. Jake, that's actually an advantage. Santos is preparing for the team he fought 3 years ago. He doesn't know who you've become since then. He was right. 3 years of civilian life hadn't made us soft. It had made us different. Marcus had learned demolition techniques in the private sector that went far beyond military training. David had access to surveillance and communication technology that was years ahead of anything we'd used in the Navy. And I had spent 3 years learning patience, learning to think beyond the immediate tactical situation. David, can you hack into the hangar's electrical systems? Already done. I can kill their power on command, or better yet, I can make it flicker in patterns that will make them think there's a malfunction while actually providing us with coordinated signals. Marcus, what about their defensive positions? I've been studying the satellite imagery. See these drainage culverts that run under the access roads? They're big enough for a person to crawl through, and they connect to storm drains that come up inside the hangar complex. Santos probably doesn't even know they exist. Chief Wilson had been coordinating with the official response teams. Jake, Agent Chun has agreed to coordinate federal perimeter security. FBI and local law enforcement will maintain a 2-mile radius around the hangar, ostensibly to prevent civilian casualties. Anyone who tries to leave that perimeter will be detained for questioning. So Santos and his people are trapped. They're contained. But Jake, that also means you're contained. If this goes wrong, there's no extraction route, no backup plan. You go in there, You either come out with Mia, or you don't come out at all. I checked my watch. 8 hours until Santos' midnight deadline. But we weren't going to wait for his timeline. Gentlemen, Miguel Santos has spent 3 years planning an operation based on the assumption that we'd react emotionally, desperately, predictably. He's about to learn that the only thing more dangerous than a Navy SEAL fighting for his country is a Navy SEAL fighting for the woman he loves. David's computer chimed with an incoming message from the hangar. Another video of Mia, but this time she looked directly into the camera and mouthed a single word, ready. She knew we were coming, and she was preparing to help. At 2,100 hours, 3 hours before Santos expected me, we began the operation that would either bring Mia home or end with all of us dead in that hangar. Marcus went in first through the drainage system, moving like a ghost through tunnels that hadn't seen maintenance since the base closed 15 years ago. His job was simple. Get close enough to plant charges on Santos' escape vehicles and disable their communication equipment before they knew we were there. David coordinated from the mobile command center, his screens showing heat signatures moving throughout the hangar complex. Jake, I count 14 targets now. Santos brought reinforcements. 2 additional heat signatures just arrived from the south. Can you identify Mia's location? Northwest corner of the main hangar, isolated from the others. She's got 1 guard, but he's positioned where he can see the main entrance. Santos is using her as both bait and insurance. Chief Wilson's voice crackled through our earpieces from his overwatch position 1,000 yards out. Jake, Marcus is in position. Charges set on 3 vehicles. Communication array is going dark in 30 seconds. You'll have maybe 90 seconds before they realize they're cut off from outside support. I moved through the storm drain system toward my insertion point, a maintenance tunnel that came up directly beneath the hangar floor. The plan was surgical. Eliminate Santos' perimeter security, create chaos and confusion, then extract Mia while his people were still trying to figure out what was happening. David, kill their lights. Now, the hangar went dark, but I could hear shouting in Spanish as Santos' people tried to figure out if it was a power failure or an attack. Emergency lighting kicked in 30 seconds later, but those 30 seconds had been enough for me to reach the tunnel access point directly below where David's thermal imaging showed Mia was being held. Marcus's voice came through the comms system. Charges detonated. Their vehicles are scrap metal, and their long-range communications are down. But Jake, they've got handheld radios. Santos is already repositioning his people. I could hear movement above me as I prepared to breach through the maintenance hatch. Santos was smart. Instead of panicking, he was adapting, treating this like the military operation it had become. The hatch opened into a storage area 20 feet from where Mia was being held. Through the darkness, I could see her guard. Young, nervous, but holding an AK-47 like he knew how to use it. He was speaking rapidly into a handheld radio, probably reporting to Santos that the power outage had him spooked. I moved with the silence that 8 years of special operations had drilled into my muscle memory. The guard never saw me coming. A sleeper hold applied correctly renders someone unconscious in 8 seconds without permanent damage. He dropped without making a sound. Mia was bound to a chair with zip ties, blindfolded, but alert. When I whispered her name, she turned toward my voice with an expression of relief and terror. Jake? Is it really you? It's me, baby. I'm getting you out of here. I cut her restraints with a tactical knife, but as I helped her stand, Santos' voice echoed through the hangar on some kind of PA system. Very impressive, soldier boy. Better than I expected. But you've made a tactical error. Floodlights suddenly illuminated the entire hangar. Santos had been prepared for a power outage. He'd let us think we had the advantage of darkness while positioning his people for a coordinated response. Jake. Chief Wilson's voice was urgent in my earpiece. You've got multiple hostiles converging on your position. Santos has been hurting you exactly where he wants you. Through the hangar's main windows, I could see muzzle flashes as Marcus engaged Santos' people near the vehicle compound. David's voice came through with tactical updates. Jake, you've got 3 shooters moving up the east corridor, 2 more flanking from the west. Santos himself is in the control room above you, elevated position with clear sight lines to your location. Mia grabbed my arm. Jake, there's something you need to know. They made me call someone while you were on your way here. Another phone call, like the one to you. They have someone else. What do you mean? They took someone else, Jake. Another woman. They said if you came for me, they'd kill her instead. Santos' voice boomed through the PA again. Did your girlfriend mention my insurance policy, soldier boy? Come upstairs. Alone. Or both women die in the next 60 seconds. Through the control room windows above us, I could see Santos holding another bound woman, someone I didn't recognize, but clearly terrified and clearly innocent. We weren't just walking into a trap. We were walking into a choice between saving Mia and condemning a stranger to death. The second hostage changed everything. Santos wasn't just playing psychological warfare. He was forcing me to choose between Mia's life and the life of an innocent stranger. It was a tactical masterstroke designed to paralyze me with an impossible moral choice. But Santos had made one critical miscalculation. He'd assumed I was still the same soldier who'd operated within the constraints of military rules of engagement 3 years ago. David, I whispered into my comm, can you identify the second hostage? Running facial recognition now? Jake. Her name is Elena Martinez. 23 years old, kindergarten teacher at Roosevelt Elementary, 3 blocks from Lincoln. She was reported missing this morning. Santos had grabbed Elena as insurance when he realized we were mounting a coordinated rescue operation. The bastard had contingency plans for his contingency plans. Marcus, what's your status? 5 tangos down on the perimeter. But Jake, I'm taking heavy fire from the east building. Santos has more people than we thought. Chief Wilson's voice cut through the tactical chatter. Jake, you've got federal agents moving into outer perimeter positions. Agent Chun is requesting sitrep and asking if you need immediate backup. I looked up at the control room where Santos held Elena at gunpoint while gesturing for me to come upstairs. Through the windows, I could see his cold smile, the expression of a man who thought he held all the cards. David, I need you to do something that's going to sound insane. Try me. Can you remotely activate the fire suppression system in that control room? The halon gas system? Jake, that'll displace all the oxygen in the room. Anyone in there without protection will pass out in 30 seconds and be dead in 2 minutes. Can you do it? Yeah, but, Marcus, I need a diversion in exactly 90 seconds. Something loud. Something that will make Santos think you're mounting a frontal assault from the east. Copy that. I've got enough C4 left to make this place think it's under artillery bombardment. I turned to Mia, who was watching me with a mixture of trust and terror. Baby, I need you to do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you, without hesitation. Can you do that? She nodded, her jaw set with the same determination I'd seen when she'd waited 3 years for me to come home from deployments. When I give the signal, you're going to run for that exit door behind us. Don't look back. Don't wait for me. Don't stop until you're outside and in the hands of federal agents. Understood. Jake, what about the other woman? I'm going to get her too. I started walking toward the stairs to the control room, but instead of heading directly up, I moved to a position where Santos could see me through the windows, but where I had cover from his shooters. Santos, I called out. You want me? Here I am. But let's make this interesting. His voice came through the PA. You're in no position to negotiate, soldier boy. Actually, I am. See, you've been so focused on your revenge fantasy that you forgot something important. I didn't come here alone, and I didn't come here to play by your rules. Marcus's explosives detonated right on schedule. The entire east wall of the hangar complex disappeared in a ball of flame and debris. Santos' people immediately began returning fire at what they thought was a frontal assault. In the chaos, I activated the tactical strobe I'd been carrying, a device designed to disorient enemies in close-quarters combat. Even through the control room windows, the effect was immediate. Santos and his remaining men were temporarily blinded. David, activate fire suppression. Now, halon gas began flooding the control room. Santos realized what was happening and tried to move toward the exit, but the gas was already affecting his coordination. Through the windows, I watched him stumble, then collapse, still trying to hold on to Elena. I was already moving up the stairs, holding my breath and wearing the emergency respirator David had given me. 30 seconds and halon gas. That's all I had. I burst through the control room door as Santos was losing consciousness. Elena was unconscious but breathing. Santos was reaching for his sidearm with the last of his strength. Miguel Santos, I said, kneeling beside him as the halon gas continued to displace oxygen. This is for every military family you've destroyed. I didn't shoot him. I didn't need to. The halon gas would do the job quietly, efficiently, and without leaving the kind of evidence that would complicate the federal investigation. I grabbed Elena and carried her toward the exit, my lungs burning as the gas affected me too. Just before losing consciousness myself, I heard David's voice through the comm. Jake, you've got 30 federal agents surrounding the building. Marcus is clear. Both hostages are alive. Santos and his remaining people are either dead or in custody. The last thing I remember before passing out was seeing Mia's face as federal paramedics pulled me out of the control room. I woke up in a federal medical facility 3 days later with Mia, holding my hand, and Agent Chen sitting in a chair beside my hospital bed. The halon gas exposure had damaged my lungs, but nothing that wouldn't heal with time and physical therapy. How's Elena? Were the first words out of my mouth. Alive, Mia said, squeezing my hand. Traumatized, but alive. She's been asking to meet you. Agent Chen leaned forward. Mr. Morrison, we need to discuss what happened in that hangar. Over the next hour, Chen explained the official version of events. Miguel Santos and his MS-13 cell had been eliminated during a joint federal operation involving FBI, DEA, and military advisors. 12 confirmed gang members dead, no federal casualties, 2 civilian hostages rescued alive. What about my team? What team? Chen asked with a slight smile. According to our reports, you acted alone as a concerned civilian who provided intelligence to federal authorities. Any resemblance to a coordinated military operation is purely coincidental. The paperwork was already being filed. Santos and his organization had been classified as transnational terrorists, which meant their elimination fell under existing national security protocols. Marcus, David, and Chief Wilson had never officially been there. But the real healing began after I left the hospital. Mia and I spent 2 weeks at her parents' house in San Francisco, away from Riverside, away from the memories, away from everything that reminded us of that nightmare. We didn't talk much about what had happened. We didn't need to. She'd hold my hand when I had nightmares about what could have gone wrong. I'd hold her when she woke up crying from dreams about being bound and helpless. Elena Martinez came to visit us during the second week. She was small, quiet, but stronger than her ordeal should have allowed. She thanked me, but more importantly, she thanked Mia. They kept telling me that no one was coming, Elena said. But then they brought you in, and you whispered to me that your boyfriend was Navy SEAL, that he would find a way. You gave me hope when I had none left. Mia had been braver than any of us realized. Even while terrified and helpless, she'd been taking care of another victim, giving her strength to survive. 3 months later, we moved out of California entirely. A small town in Colorado, where the mountains reminded me of Afghanistan, but in a peaceful way. Mia got a job teaching 5th grade at a school where the biggest security concern was making sure kids didn't leave their bikes unlocked. I started a security consulting business, helping other military families who'd found themselves targeted by criminal organizations seeking revenge for old operations. Turned out there were more of us than anyone wanted to admit. Marcus, David, and Chief Wilson stayed in touch. We never talked about that night in detail, but sometimes Marcus would text me photos of his new demolition projects, or David would call to share intelligence about other MS-13 cells being dismantled by federal task forces. Chief Wilson was promoted to admiral and started a new program pairing active duty SEALs with local law enforcement for counterterrorism operations. Funny how some operations become official policy after they prove successful. 6 months after the hangar, I finally bought Mia that engagement ring I'd been saving for. Not because the trauma had taught us life was short, we'd always known that, but because surviving something that terrible together had shown us what we were really made of as a team. She said yes before I'd finished asking the question. We got married in a small ceremony in the Colorado mountains, with Elena Martinez as one of Mia's bridesmaids. Marcus, David, and Admiral Wilson were there, officially as friends of the family, unofficially as the team that had made our future possible. During our first dance, Mia whispered in my ear, "Do you think we'll ever have a normal life?" I looked around at our wedding reception. Former special operations personnel dancing with elementary school teachers, federal agents sharing war stories with kindergarten kids, Elena laughing with Mia's mother about something I couldn't hear. "Baby," I said, "I don't think either of us would know what to do with normal." She smiled, the same smile that had gotten me through 3 deployments and 1 night of hell. "Good, because I love you exactly the way you are. The man who would tear apart the world to bring me home." A year later, Mia got her garden. 2 acres of vegetables, flowers, and fruit trees that she tends every morning before heading to her new school. I help when she lets me, but mostly I just watch her create life from soil and seeds. Sometimes I catch her looking at the mountains, and I know she's thinking about that night, about how close we came to losing everything. But then she'll smile and show me how the tomatoes are growing, or ask my opinion about where to plant the new rose bushes. We survived Miguel Santos. We survived MS-13. Most importantly, we survived our own trauma and came out stronger.